Ready? All right. I will call us to order with a roll call. Jason? Here. Lucas? Here. Mark?
Here.
Megan?
Here.
Jean?
Here.
Jen?
Here.
Mark?
Here.
Amy?
Here.
I am here. Excellent. All right, this meeting is being recorded. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording beyond that which is already being done, please notify me at this time. And with that, do we have any commentary from visitors or the public? Good. Okay, good. I need a motion to adjourn to executive section to return. So we can discuss strategy.
I will make a motion that we adjourn to executive session, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21(3), to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the SLEA support staff and to act under the authority of special law to approve executive session minutes of June 5th, 2025 and August 11th, 2025, and to return to open session.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Forget, do I need to roll call this?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right. We'll adjourn to come back with a roll call. Jason?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right, we'll be back shortly. Okay.
Now, switch over.
We do have some school correspondence, and I would like to read aloud. This is dated October the 8th of 2025. Dear school committee members, we would like to offer our heartfelt thanks to you for allowing a stone memorializing John Montosi to be placed on the high school campus. We are very grateful to you. Shout outs to Principal Michaela Gill, Athletic Director Rick Swanson, Director of Facilities Mike Wallace, and to John Burnett and his students of the Horticultural Department. Everyone's cooperation and contributions to help with this endeavor accomplished was overwhelming. With a display of Silver Lake pride. Coach Montosi always taught team, and this was truly a team effort. The Lakers sincerely supporters of the John Montosi Memorial Stone. Thanks for that. Jason, do you want to hold off and talk about this memo during your legislative update?
I will defer to the chair.
Okay. It's the memo in reference to the town graduation. With that, we will proceed to the consent agenda. For those who might not be aware or who have not been in attendance before, consent agenda is a handful of limited items that are generally non-controversial, that are reviewed ahead of time and put together into one block to be voted on without much further discussion. It is possible for members of the committee to move that something come out of the consent agenda if they wish to discuss it or wish to debate it or might have a contrary opinion. So right now, before seeking a move, I'll see if anybody has anything on the consent agenda that they might object to or might want to discuss. And the items on the consent agenda are the approval of minutes from September 11, 2025, the approval of warrants, the approval of a financial report, and the approval of grants, donations, and awards, including an AED device from Scholastic Sports Zone Foundation. Okay. Seeing no discussion, I'll need a motion then to advance the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda is presented.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right. So, new business. We have policy IKFE. Let's see, Michaela and Dr. Clifford, would you like to take it over here?
Sure. So the policy IKFE is our competency determination for our graduates. It's a policy that's in our district manual. It's also listed in our program of study. So it's a little bit of a two-part tonight. So in the shared drive, you'll see both of those documents. The language is the same, a very colorful one. is the one that I'm referring to right now. It shows the language that we're looking to strike, and then the language in red that we're looking to add. And so it's really, I think it starts on page 3 of that handout. The information before is what you would see in the program of studies leading up to the CD language. And this is because, as you know, MCAS is no longer required as a high school graduation requirement, and so we needed to update this language. That is the major change, the removal of that as a requirement. But then we're also expanding the categories of coursework that students would need to demonstrate proficiency in. So it would expand beyond ELA and math to include science and history courses as well. In addition to these 2 documents, there's also a copy of the slides from the webinar that I attended this summer, and then just my typed up notes from that to kind of like highlight the things that districts are required to put into their new CD to then be approved by our school committees and then be submitted to the state. The other notable additions that we have are what I like to refer to as on-ramps for students, especially students who might have an IEP, RELs, or students who transfer into the district who may not have taken the same types of courses, especially if they're transferring from a school that may have been out of state. And so these different on-ramps or pathways just sort of are laid out to students to work with administration on different approvals and different ways to determine that they still meet that competency and can earn their high school diploma. The language also has some new written policy and steps for appeals. An appeal for either a student who maybe doesn't meet the CD requirement, that would go to the assistant superintendent or I. And then also a provision for former students who may not have received their diplomas because of that MPAS requirement. They can now appeal for their diploma. And then we would sort of review that and make a determination. And then with hopes, we would issue their diploma. One sort of point to make those that the diploma would not be retroactive, so it wouldn't be for the year that they had anticipated they would be graduating. It would be for the year that they're writing that appeal and that request to us. So if we got one now, they would get it for the, they would be considered a 2025 graduate, for example. So I know there's a lot of language in there, but it's supposed to be all encompassing so that our students have multiple pathways to determine that competency in order to earn their high school diploma.
Jean?
Ms. Scull, how do you propose that this is going to be rolled out to students? Like, I know that obviously many of them are well aware that the MCAS requirement was withdrawn, but how, especially for a child that may not be an academic learner, for them to now follow a process if they're not doing well academically, or how do we propose that?
I would say, to be completely honest, most kids are not going to be impacted one way or the other by this. They're not going to know any difference. It would really be a case-by-case basis where if there's a student who academically isn't meeting the requirements, those are conversations the guidance counselors are already going to be having with parents and that student, and then we're going to look at, do you fall into one of these categories, and what is your pathway going to be, and it's really going to be catered to that individual learner. But in terms of like the general public, if you will, I don't think it would be a glamorous, like, hey, here's the new CD requirement for you, because we still have those local graduation requirements that aren't changing.
May I just ask one follow-up with that? Would there be any downside if these were not presented to the state? Would we not be?
Yeah, we as a district are required
Thank
to
you.
submit our CD by December 31st.
Am I looking at the right document? It has at the top learning experiences and the one coursework and so forth.
That's part of the letter, Jason.
That's different.
I'm referring to
This whole packet.
this one.
It's in our
Yes.
online.
So we would need your vote and approval to make these changes, and then we would submit it to the state for final approval.
Motion to approve the local controlled competency determination is presented by Principal Gill.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay.
Thank you. And I want a special thanks to our coordinators, our special ed director, Dr. Clifford. Everybody had a hand in making sure that we were covering all of our students and all the different pathways for competency determination. Thanks to the team.
All right. Somebody here has a volleyball discussion.
Yes. I will take that one as well. I'm here with members of our boys volleyball team. Our AD, Mr. Swanson, had to run back over to the school. We have a girls soccer game that's taking place right now. We have our future Lakers are there, so we're trying to juggle a lot of things right now. But believe it or not, it's been 3 years since Brady, Joey, and Zach sat before us and presented their request for a boys volleyball team per our district policy and per MIAA. They sat here and talked about the interest and the number of people that could field the team. Mark Helisek was here at the time as a booster parent, and they laid out a plan to be able to financially support that team on their own for 3 years. And believe it or not, this is year 3. So spring of 2026 will be year 3 of them fully self-funding this program at our school. And so now our next step is to request permission or approval from the school committee to be able to add spring boys volleyball to our operating budget. Mr. Swanson typed up a summary of what that annual cost is and what that impact would be in our budget. And the team is here tonight if you have any questions for them about the program. But regardless of what the outcome is, I think a round of applause for these guys. This program for our school. So I can answer the financial and technical questions. They can answer the fun questions.
Just so you know, their second year last year officially made them an MIAA.
Varsity.
Yep, and they went from being JV to varsity, and they're seniors now, and they've got quite a legacy to leave behind, so.
So I was a member of the committee that approved the boys moving forward and establishing their own team. My question is purely financial. I support you guys and hope to see you become one of our officially funded varsity sports here. Are we talking about for this spring in the current budget or for next year?
Next, FY '27.
So to be
Yep.
included in our budget proposals that
Correct.
we're deliberating? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no issue with that.
These moms are done.
We're graduating, we're done, we're past the sophomore and junior parents.
Well, I give you even more credit for that you're doing for the next generation, not necessarily your own kids. I really appreciate that too.
I was actually not here that night. I was in the haunted house volunteering the night that they approved you guys as a team. But I think that it's wonderful that you guys have self-funded for a couple of years, and I think it's inspiring for other athletes in the building that would like to start a program that you guys persevered through some challenging conversations. I know that it started because you couldn't play on the team in the fall. So I commend you guys for going through all the steps and for doing everything that you needed to do to play for the last couple of years. And I wish you guys very much success this year. And I hope that this passes for the future years.
I was here, but I was sitting back there, over there as part of the mob. And the same thing. I mean, it's been nothing but impressive. You got through your second year, I think, I think the second year is the hardest. I think the only thing, it's not that you haven't done enough that you could ask coach to do, is get more involved in a middle school program to keep building the program. Because we all know that boys volleyball is probably the 3rd fastest growing sport right now. I think there's going to be a lot of interest, especially if you guys can help generate it, but fantastic.
I know they worked a lot with Mariah, who runs the middle school program, to get some kids involved and whatnot. We do have enough incoming freshmen that's going to play this year and all that, so they've even inspired some of their friends that go to both North and South to start the boys volleyball team there too, and they've been helping them work with that. So it definitely has inspired a lot of people.
They're exceptional kids.
I would agree.
And to go from one price bracket, being in the JV, another $4,000, and to overcome that and financially and to raise that money, it was a big task. Yeah, and we did it, so we plan on doing it again this year, so.
Lucas?
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that beginning fiscal year 2027, the boys volleyball program will be funded through the operating budget.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Great adoption.
Congratulations, y'all. You'll be raising angel investment in another few years for bigger and bigger things. So. All right, let's go to.
Thank you, everybody.
CTE.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
CTE. This is,
Hi, thanks for your time. This is a follow-up to a discussion that took place last month, and this is a required step again for us in the process of meeting DESE deadlines to submit revised admissions policies based on everything that we are aware is going on in the state. There were shared with you 2 documents, and so I'll just summarize really quickly. There's a middle school document and then a high school admissions document. Both were done in conjunction with our principals, so we've all reviewed them together before they're in front of you. It's the middle school document. It would be really new, and again, the starting point is all schools that have wait lists for admissions are writing these documents. They're written both with referencing the state guidelines that have been put out for us, as well as using a model template that all schools are using really to format their documents. And I would tell you that for the most part, our high school admissions policy really looks very similar to what it looked like in the past. So if you even put your eyes on it and it looked familiar to you, it really represents a similar looking document to what we used previously. The middle school document is called the Middle School Pathway Exploration Policy. Those are really just focused on ensuring that middle schools are promoting four-year career track CTE programs to their students, and then students have access to that information. So for us, that was relatively straightforward and simple because we are doing those things. We have a real awesome advantage that we are, one school system on the same campus, and our 8th grade kids have always had access to our programs through our presentations and tours and open houses, and we're always welcomed in to do those things, and that's what they're looking for you to document. So it's a policy that primarily states the events that you do to host the CTE program at the middle school, what your collaboration looks like between the middle school and the high school. And again, those are all things that were really already in place. It's just documenting them through that policy. The second document is the high school admissions document that the state now calls the Chapter 74 Recruitment, Admission, and Retention Policy. Again, the bones look very similar to what it did in the past. The big change, obviously, is eliminating the evaluative criteria that we previously used rather than the lottery direction that everybody is moving. Our lottery language is there. I can read that paragraph if you want me to specifically, or if you looked at it, it's there. It just puts some specifics to how it's public and advertised, that kind of thing. It does also change meeting a state requirement, our admissions deadline, which would now be March 1st rather than April 1st, so it bumps the process up a little bit. Happy to answer any questions, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it looks like Elliot did a great job following the guidelines and the regulations put forth by the state and the recommendations from the CTE subcommittee at our last meeting. I'm very pleased to see how the documents turned out. Totally in favor of passing them as presented by Elliot. Make that as a motion.
Second.
Just before we vote, this is sort of connected, maybe sort of not. Pembroke, I believe, is about to vote to try to start their own VOTEC, which I assume has everything to do with lack of space in ours. Do we see any worries or concerns about them going that direction? Are we projecting happy full enrollment and so forth?
Yeah, so there's a lot of history to that discussion in this room with our school committee over the years and with the town of Pembroke. It is a response, obviously, to them not having seats anywhere anymore, which primarily was here with us. If we went back 5 years ago, we had 40 Pembroke students that were tuitioned in and participate. So as we made a real conscious choice to prioritize in-district students over out-of-district students, that's the state, guidance as well at this point. That's the new policy in 3 different places states that, that's the case. Our numbers are really so way over what our enrollment allows in grade 9. We would have a long way to go in the opposite direction before we'd be looking at tuitioning students in. We did learn, at the time a few years ago when we had a discussion with the state that it was allowable for us to consider a seat allocation within our admissions policy that would, portion seats for the town of Pembroke. So if you wanted to set 10 seats aside, that we would have the ability legally to do that. We did discuss that, and the school committee at the time decided that we didn't want to do that. We wanted to prioritize the seats for Silver Lake residents. And so the town of Pembroke's option right now is to try to buy into South Shore Tech, which the town of Marshfield recently did. It comes at a really high buy-in cost. The school's also being rebuilt, so they have a few steps really for that to come to fruition, both in the fall at town meeting and then in the spring as a ballot vote. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. All right, any further discussion?
Can I just ask one question? Since there's so many kids now that are wanting into the CT program, which I think is phenomenal, I love it, is there any disciplinary thing put in place for a student who is actually in the CT program and continues to miss that class or show up late, or if they've missed 10 classes of the CT or something? My thing is about accountability, and if there's other kids that are really wanting into this program, we have someone that's in there that just isn't doing their 100%, is there anything in line that disciplines that student?
So, the same disciplinary procedures, apply to all of our kids, I think, at the high school. We've never looked, to exit students from courses from a disciplinary standpoint in that way. There's ways that kids are addressed, obviously, to be held accountable for some of the things that you're talking about that don't involve, being removed from the program. As much as I like to even talk about it as a privilege, right, that a student's in CTE based on those numbers, it's not, from a disciplinary standpoint, we can't always, have that play out in the way that you're talking about with the student. I don't know if Michaela would say that differently.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's an academic course, right? So discipline is just separate from academics. However, there are certain safety infractions that if violated, we do have language that the student would be removed from that program. So.
Yeah, there are some things that elevate quicker for a kid that's in CTE from a disciplinary standpoint, based on, again, the safety piece, but
That'll do it.
yeah, we're still trying to get as many kids, obviously, the ability to participate as possible. The conversation around growth and seats is one that I think, should continue to have, because we put a lot of effort and work into that direction. So tough budget year, I know. And so I think to some extent we've tabled some of that. We talked at the last CTE subcommittee meeting about that a little bit, but I think it obviously should squarely continue to be on the table for us, and we'll have to wait and see what the numbers look like when we have a lottery. Does that change our interest for some reason? I'm not sure. I guess we'll have to see what that looks like. But yeah.
Okay, Gordon, thanks. Yeah. I guess, I know we talk a lot about the 15 seats per program. Is that the statewide regulation for the CTE programs, or is that because of the size of our classrooms? And I know it sounds like obvious, but have we considered maybe adding a 16th or 17th seat to some of the classrooms that could handle it, or is that something that
There's state recommended teacher ratios in those programs. Early education has a 20-to-1, so we do, when we can, squeeze more kids into that program. And then based on off-site work, there's even a different, teacher-to-student ratio and on a construction site or in a clinical setting. So there's, yeah, I mean, there's a reason why we're on the 15 to 1 generally when we place kids.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lucas?
Just gonna take advantage that we have an elder here. I have a question to administration. Are we still planning to open a additional CT program? Because a couple years passed and the subject is, we're not talking about this anymore. So I would like to ask, what is the plans for the administration? Are we going to open it? And if yes, how many years it's gonna take and when we could open it?
It's a funding issue.
Yeah, so there's a lot of folks involved in that decision-making when it comes to the budgetary responsibilities that go along with that. So I think you know that we were fully prepared to secure as much grant funding as we could through our Perkins allocation to help get, again, the marketing program off the ground that we were targeting over the last 2 years. And as the budget process played out, supporting a teaching salary wasn't in the cards. So that's, you know, I guess that would continue just to be a reality in our discussions as we prioritize salary in the budget.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None, that passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot.
Jason, you're up next.
So I just wanted to ask if anybody would like to be the delegate for Silver Lake to the MASC Delegate Assembly. It'll be happening on November 14th at 3:15 in the afternoon. It's the same evening that Jean will be getting her award for the Division III School Committee Member of the Year All-Star. There's not a lot. No schools really dug into putting in resolutions for us to consider, except for one on removing body mass index from students' records, but not being responsible for that at a school level anymore. And there's wide consensus right now that school committees across Massachusetts want to move forward on eliminating that as one of the things that we do as public schools. The other aspect of being a delegate would just be the business of the association, looking at our fiscal situation, approving new officers moving forward, and reauthorizing some sunsetting provisions, which do include the Special Ed Stabilization Fund and the Regional School Stabilization Funds. But there's a good chance those might pass this legislative cycle anyways. If anybody would like to join me down the Cape, I'll be there anyway. I have to MC the event, that's why I can't be your voting delegate.
I'd love to do it if nobody else minds. I love going, it's great PD.
Awesome. I will nominate Amy.
I'll second that.
Awesome.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy.
For yourself.
Thank you for volunteering. Better to have representation.
All right, Liz, over to you.
Great, thank you. I have for you the SRO MOU for your consideration. There are no substantive language changes, just date changes, and I'm asking for your approval to sign on behalf of Dr. Brew, and also looking for your vote.
Motion to accept and sign on behalf of Dr. Peru.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those you have the next two things.
I also have an additional MOA for your consideration and vote. We, in supporting the business office, are in need of a banking and accounting support for up to 2 hours a week while Sarah Hickey is going to be, Deb Kinney, our accountant, is out. Just from a practical standpoint, we can't have someone be doing the banking and the accounting in the capacity of the LTS, so we looked to support that through our current administrative assistants. So there's an MOA that asks for your support to have this banking support personnel Sarah, does it add anything to that? I'm sorry.
So, our accountant, as of 4 o'clock this afternoon, is out on long-term leave. We've hired a long-term sub-accountant to fill that position. And when we were searching for a long-term sub-accountant, I wasn't extremely comfortable having somebody coming in and saying, here's access to all of our bank accounts. And so we determined that it would be better if we had somebody who worked for us in-house that could do this work, and so put together a position that went out to all staff for this 2 hours a week, or up to 2 hours a week position, and received some excellent applicants.
Are there financial implications to this?
Yes.
Can they be absorbed within the budget?
No. Within the budget as voted last March, no.
How will we? Sorry, just that.
Making me laugh.
If you would like to go out of order on my report, additional minimum aid discussion and vote,
Okay.
if the chair would.
Gordon, please, so that it
Do we
clarifies.
motion for that?
I'll make a motion that we take Sarah's additional aid out of order, please.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Saying none. Sarah, please proceed.
Thank you. I had put a memo in the school committee folder about additional minimum aid explaining that the numbers that we used for the budget for revenue from the governor's budget from January were different than what the actual numbers were that came in. So the additional minimum aid for Silver Lake is $129,899. In the memo that I put in your school committee packets, I have a proposal of how I would like to use that additional money. Our maintenance director is going to be going out on a long-term leave, and we currently only have one wastewater treatment plant operator on staff, which is the maintenance director, and I would like to use $30,000 to contract with a company to be our wastewater treatment plant operators, and then the maintenance director could be the backup to that. Next on the list, $50,000. We found out last week that the heat recovery wheel in the wastewater treatment plant is malfunctioning, and this was discovered because our heat bill for the wastewater treatment plant was a 700% increase in FY25, September of FY25 over September of 2024, and that caused me to investigate, and that's when it was found that the heat recovery wheel was not functioning. There's a cost of $50,000 to fix that. The system was in the facility condition assessment for complete replacement. The complete replacement of that unit is $260,000, so this would just repair the existing units and it works. We are paying for a long-term sub-accountant to cover the accountant's leave from October to December at a cost of $12,600. I would like to use the additional minimum aid for that. I would request to keep the long-term sub-accountant on from January to June to hopefully alleviate some of the problems we've been having in the business office with making deadlines. And then the balance of the money, the $11,049, I would like to use to restore some cuts to supplies that the middle school and high school made back in December before we brought the original preliminary budget to you in January. So to answer your question, did we have the money in March? No. Do we have the money now? Yes.
And you answered the question wonderfully, but also set up my major concern. So we used $1.25 million from E&D for our operating budget just to get through this year without having to make any major cuts to programs or staff. When we made that vote, I made a pledge that I would go to the state and try and get as much more aid as possible sent to us so it could help replenish E&D. Because if you look at our budget, $250,000 is 0.5%. So just to pay back, not to get to level service, but to get to level funded for next year, we have to find 2.5%.
Right.
I don't know what E&D is going to replenish to. I don't know how we got so much in E&D last year. It still isn't quite clear how we had the 5% plus fully funded. I hope to God when we end up in spring, we'll have a fully funded E&D again, but I am not counting on it. So if we use this money now, it will alleviate some issues that we definitely have. There is no doubt. But it's almost a double whammy because we're increasing the budget by $130,000, plus we're also losing the ability to backfill $130,000 into E&D that we could use for next year's operating budget. So it's like another 0.5%. So we're gonna have to come up with 3% just to be level funded, not even level certs. Just, it concerns me. I'm not saying that Sarah's not correct and the need is not there. I would challenge Buildings and Grounds to find money from within the capital plan to deal with the $80,000 that's happening between personnel and the wheel over in the wastewater treatment plant, for us to think of other creative ways. I won't stand in the way of the committee's vote and decision. I will support whatever you come up with, but we're in a financial pickle. I know we also have operation issues as well. We have to decide how we want to go for them. But the use of that E&D last year, we did say we would use any additional state revenues to offset the draw from E&D.
Sarah, could you discuss a little bit the deadlines that we're struggling with? I'm interpreting the accountant, 12,600 is that's absolutely required. We have to come up with 12,600 somehow because we have to have a long-term sub-accountant. I'm interpreting 26.2 as an attempt to get back up on top of things. Could you describe those a bit?
So the accountant is out on a long-term medical leave, and we had to post for that, and we hired a very competent candidate who actually started and had some overlap because there was a considerable amount of information that had to be learned in order to be able to essentially come in tomorrow morning and fill some very big shoes. So we have a commitment from this long-term sub-accountant to work until the end of December. And so that's what the 12,600 is.
Do we expect our regular accountant back in January, but we're looking to have an additional accountant in order to get back up on top?
Yes.
Okay, so that being said, could you describe the things that you want to get back up on top of and some of the risks and consequences that we're presently dealing with?
Okay. We have not closed out cash for FY25 yet, which means I haven't been able to start my end of year report. And by not closing out cash, I specifically mean that the balance of our accounts in our financial system don't match with the balance of our accounts in the bank. This is something that has been worked on since July 1st. We haven't gotten a resolution to it yet. Our auditor is assisting us with this, but we can't really move forward. So if we haven't closed out cash and I can't do my end-of-year reports, it means we also can't submit E&D. It means we also can't have our audit. And our audit being late is causing some significant problems for us. You're aware, or should be aware, that one of the first tasks I did when I started here in January of 2024, I wrote the corrective action plan for the FY22 audit. The FY22 audit was due in March of 2023, well before I even applied for this job. So the business office has been playing catch up, but what happens is when there are things when things are going smoothly, it's great, but when there's little issues that come up, there's not time to check and double check and triple check. And so it's hit things as you can, and we're operating in a reactive fashion, not a proactive fashion, and it is causing problems for us.
Can you describe those problems a little bit more?
So if we can take other parts of my report out of order, I put a letter in your packet about Moody's. Moody's Investor Services is essentially our credit agency. They determine credit worthiness, and we had a credit rating from Moody's. Moody's dropped our credit rating in September for a lack of information. That lack of information was they didn't have our FY24 audit. The FY24 audit was finished in September and submitted to Moody's, and last week we went through what is called a ratings call, where Moody's asked a series of questions, and they met today and told me that they will be sending me an email tomorrow between 11 and 1 stating the results of their meeting today to whether they will reinstate our rating. Now, specifically, this is our credit rating. So one of the first questions they asked was, do you expect to borrow at any point? So no one is going to lend anything to Silver Lake without some sort of credit rating. This is a result of us not being able to get things submitted on time.
So I wanted to be sure that Sarah could get all of that discussion out. This connects back to the discussion that she had to try to increase headcount in the office in order to deal with the backlog of audit material and other things like that. Obviously, it's an even more strained position having somebody go out on long-term leave. Obviously, we had made the decision for not increasing that headcount over to budgetary constraints. Jason is dead right in terms of what our budgetary challenges are meant to be. So we're in a very rock and a hard place position with this discussion. At a minimum, I think the 12-6 has to be done because we can't not have an accountant, and we can't. Part of what we're preventing there is having, if we don't have that person, we have duties fall on the same person who cannot be both auditing and managing bank accounts. We just can't do that.
We actually don't have anybody for those duties to fall on.
So that, I think, at a very minimum, has to be done. The rest of the stuff, escalates in priority. When we talk about the heat bill being 700% of, what's the actual dollar difference?
I don't have that information, I'm sorry.
Okay. Mark?
So the heat recovery issue was actually discovered by one of our accountants in the admin process, and noticed a 70% increase in the energy cost due to this failed recovery wheel, which we didn't know it was failed. The way we found it is from the forensic analysis of accounting data, which I really want to commend the staff for finding something like that. Could have gone, okay, we got a bill and we pay the bill as fast as they can. This, the administrative support, I think, is something we've got to address. And I share Jason's, let's put it back in E&D, but E&D is what funded the capital plan. So it's almost like you're putting it back in so they can take it back out. In particular, the recovery wheel situation is a 20% cost to repair an item that would normally cost $260,000. And I think it's something that the facilities director thinks is important to get addressed as soon as we can, so we can stop wasting the money. I think it's something we should fund. The $30,000 for the contract, we need to be careful on the contracts when people contract out their wastewater treatment plants to be repaired. And we need to pick not necessarily a firm, but an individual. There's some individuals that are retired that are willing to go forward with this. Either way, it's probably going to cost about the same amount. You need to have a wastewater treatment plant operator to maintain your plant correctly. We've had problems in the past. ICO got involved. We had some corrective action. We have a pledge from the Kingston Wastewater Department to assist us in monitoring our wastewater treatment plant and try to help us find somebody to take a look at it. So I would, before we go out and just randomly pick a contractor and put that out to bid, I'd like to have further discussion with the staff on trying to find somebody that can do it, that's going to maintain it like it was theirs versus a number, because these companies typically come in and maintain your plant at minimum standards, and then when their contract's over, you've got a lot of repairs to do. So we just got to watch that. I support funding the top 4 items. The supply cuts from round 1, I think, I don't necessarily feel comfortable going forward if we were able to survive them at this point. But I also want to thank Sarah for bringing to us an expense, but also bringing to us a funding source, because a lot of times we get these and we have to come up with our own funding sources. So, I personally can support 2, 3, and 4 as written, and on item 1, I would like to see some discussion on how we solve that problem of covering the contract while our wastewater treatment plant operator is not available. And I can't yet support the 5th one without further discussion. Thank you.
On the $30,000, when would that contract need to start?
So we used to have 2 licensed wastewater treatment plant operators on staff. One of them resigned. So we currently only have, so it was a...
So we need somebody doing something about it as soon as reasonable, because we're down.
When did they resign, and why wasn't that money allocated for that position still?
It was a stipended position for a custodian. And
And it has been posted since that position was vacated. It has been posted.
So it should have already been allocated in the budget then, right?
Well, think about it from this perspective. It's a stipend position that we paid someone as part of their duties. So yes, budgeted for, but when, to Mark's point, when we go outside and contract someone like any other contract, I think the $30,000 is a estimate, but to Mark's point, it's a very
loose.
The licensure itself and finding people who are able to do it. If we were even to pay an individual in conversations with the director of facilities, it could likely be that much, whether we contract with a person or a company.
and we do have the opportunity, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, but we do have the opportunity to approach Kingston, who operates a wastewater treatment plant, and see if we can get a stipend person from that bank of people that are already qualified. As a suggestion. Thank you. Still gonna cost money.
Mark?
A question on the accountant from January to June. That's in addition to the person who'll be coming back, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Do we expect that, is that enough time and enough effort to get us out of the hole? And do we need to then budget for that person again next year? Or is this we're done in June and we go back to normal
I
stuff?
would love to confidently say to you that's enough to get us out of the hole, but one of the things that I find is, on a regular basis, I find deeper holes. So it would make a dent in where the district needs to be.
So is there?
But I can't with 100% confidence say to you, our FY25 audit is going to be complete by the March 31st, audited by the March 31st deadline, given that we haven't closed FY25.
Our auditors have said consistently that we are understaffed in this area, that it is a risk, and that we should add at least one more head. So it is a consistent ask from the administration that they have brought to us, I would say, at least 2 years running. And then we've declined because of budget reasons.
Yeah, it even precedes Sarah in the position.
So it would be,
So
we
theoretically.
would be voting on this, but in theory, we're extending it forever.
Well, no, I mean, if we vote this, it is additional help for the period of time. We still have to go through a budget process that is going to start in the next 2 meetings. In which we look at all the horrors that Jason just articulated. If there's any way to fit that additional person for, permanently, we would love to be able to do that. It just becomes extremely difficult to make an argument like that when you're also talking about frontline teaching staff and that sort of thing. Mark?
Just like to quickly add, though, that we are running an administrative and business department without backup training, without cross-training for when people go out, because we simply don't have time to train people. We have people working under salary that are working and well in excess of 40 hours a week. Dedicated staff, but we've asked our staff to go above and beyond, and I think it's time that we really have to look at how our department's organized and maybe get a little few efficiencies, but also look at the staffing. We're very, very lucky to have the people we have working for us that are willing to do that outside of the normal 40 hours a week. And I think we need to really look at this in the next budget.
We have definitely been voting a certain amount of risk. And some of that risk is coming home. Getting, having your ratings decommissioned is pretty negative. And that is a direct result of not being able to get our audits done on time, which we have consistently not been able to do for years now. So there's nothing easy about this vote. There are downsides and risks to either way that we look at. Sarah has asked for a motion
This started with the MOA for the long-term sub-banking support. I wanted to mention that there has to be a separation of duties in the business office. There's the treasurer. The treasurer has access to bank accounts and moves money, but doesn't have access to the financial system. The accountant and the rest of the business office and I have access to the financial system and can spend money. And it is the relationship with the bank from the business office that is missing now that the accountant is out. And so the specific tasks, this 2 hours a week that we estimated, is uploading the document, uploading the files to the bank so that the bank can pay payroll. downloading checks so that the checks can be reconciled, transferring ACH deposits out and in. So this is something that our treasurer could not do. I spoke to Mark Guidoni about this 2 months ago, wondering if he could, but then realized through a conversation with our attorney that it wasn't appropriate for the treasurer because this is money going out and the treasurer just moves money between accounts. So if
I was fired before I was hired.
So right now in Silver Lake, there is one person that has been trained by the accountant to upload the payroll so everybody gets a paycheck on Tuesday.
Can I just ask a question? So the accountant, just to clarify, would they only work on Silver Lake related business, or would there be any elementary business included in that 2 hours? So if there's a follow-up question to that, if the answer is yes.
So there's two positions. There's the long-term sub-accountant, which is will work on all 4 districts.
Okay.
The long-term sub-accountant banking assistant will only be working on Silver Lake.
So that's the 26. No.
No, the banking assistant is the 2 hours at max per week.
Right, that's the 12/6 plus 12/6, yes, 26.
Which I estimate will be about $1,000.
And you don't see
Up until
actually
December.
listed individually
Okay.
on that document.
I guess my follow-up, is there going to be additional asks to the elementary committees to supplement any of this cost? Like, is there more money that
Needs to be paid.
needs to be paid, right, that would be asked to the elementary committees? Or is this the total cost?
This is the total cost here. I hadn't thought about asking the elementary committees.
Let's do that.
The elementary committees don't have the authority to allocate those funds. That would be a town-based decision because they hold the funds for the school department. It's a different for us because we're our own municipality.
Okay.
Jason?
I would like to see in writing from Russ a finding on the CMR that allows adjustments of budgets after voted by town meeting. The MGL is silent on the matter of increasing the budget without increasing the assessments, but the CMR is a little bit more confusing in the language that the towns would have up to 45 days to challenge with a special town meeting. So I just want to hear from Russ, does that mean that we have to wait, if you guys decide to vote yes tonight, 45 days to utilize those funds before, if no challenge is raised and the towns give consent and it doesn't raise their assessments, if we can utilize those funds directly after the vote tonight? I would like a finding in writing by Russ before we do anything regardless of the vote tonight.
You would like a finding from Russ.
The
CMR.
CMR concerns me, the
Regardless,
language.
before we do, when you say before we do anything, what do you mean?
Let's say you guys vote
Let's
yes
say-
tonight.
Let's say at a bare minimum, we vote the 12/6.
Yes,
Okay.
if you're going to utilize and increase the overall budget for Silver Lake Regional Schools tonight, I want in writing from Russ that we are allowed to do this immediately, or do we have to wait 45 days per the Code of Massachusetts regulation? Just because it's somewhat vague on the difference between raising an assessment of an individual town and raising the budget. It does speak to it in the CMR, it does not speak to it in the MGL.
May I just ask a point of clarification, which I believe has to do with this? Are we talking about raising the budget, or are we talking about allocating?
This is outside the budget.
Right, I understand that it's outside the budget, but what I guess the difference that I'm confused about is when we're talking about level funded for next year, level service, are we going to be including this $129,000 that we were not anticipating until Moody sent you a letter?
This would have gone
So-
to D.
Right, then I'm with Jason on this, that I don't want to do something that's going to, like, for Kingston, our town meeting is next week. They're not going to call an additional town meeting to cover this, meaning Kingston's hands are going to be tied.
there's nothing to cover. So this is additional money coming to Silver Lake from the state. And the question is, what does the school committee wish to do with it?
But you're saying if we were not allocating it to these 5 things, it would be going to E&D, so that would
That's correct.
essentially help correct what we've been using the last couple of years. It would continue to fund that.
But like Sarah said, through you, Mr. Chair, we might not have E&D certified if we don't have the personnel to do it. But
Right.
it is a catch-22.
Oh, I
There's no
understand.
doubt.
I think the whole thing's a
At
catch-22.
an absolute bare minimum, I think we have to fund the 12-6.
Because that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to raise the budget to do it.
It would theoretically mean reducing some else.
I agree.
It's only October. That's a concern, like,
That's 6,
you know,
9 more months.
right.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, yeah, we could effectively take the heat recovery out of the regular operating capital plan.
That was my suggestion,
That's
that
what
Safer
it's
take the current allocation we have for this year's capital plan, ditch one of the things we thought we were gonna do for an emergency.
And I
We've done it in the past, there's precedent for it.
And that's really the only solution to removing that one. And I question the employee that went out, and is not available. Is that a disability situation? Is that something being
I
paid?
don't think we could talk about that.
No, I'm just trying to say, funding-wise, if the person's continuing to collect a paycheck, then it isn't gonna help us. But if they are
So
being funded from a different source,
to be clear on that, Mark, one of the employees with the license is no longer employed by the district.
Okay.
The other employee with the license will be going out on a long-term leave that is covered, a long-term medical leave.
okay, and I'm not,
So we're going to go from 2 wastewater treatment plants operators to 0 within 6 months.
gotcha.
But I would argue that could also be paid from our capital.
No, but it's a contract, but okay.
We do contracts with
That up, okay. Well, we can cover that, but the, as far as paying the accountant, they're gonna have to take that out of Hyde, just to go somewhere else. If we don't fund this.
Okay, so it sounds to me, Mark, like you will want to take the wastewater issues back to the Safer Committee and look to reallocate from this year's capital plan, in which case you'd be bringing that back to, we would bring that back to a vote, I assume, since we've voted on the capital plan.
Right.
So the next, bring that back for next meeting, I assume, to.
We'd have to bring that back to the next meeting, unless you wanna have one sooner.
No, that's fine. And then for the accountant, somebody who's free to make a motion and try to fund part or all of this through the money that we're talking about, or we can opt not to motion right now, but I don't know if you're newer, you may not have caught the subtlety of what Jean suggested when she said it's October. The reality is we are paying somebody right now, and we will pay them, and so we don't, if we do that and later on in the year we have to find some way to not spend $12,600 because we paid this person for this period of time, then that would be on the administration to do. They would have to figure out how to manage that if we vote no additional funds, or if we don't vote any funds, so to speak, or any allocations out of this. Or we can just wait. We can get the legal opinion from Russ. We could come back and consider voting it. It does not mean that we won't have the accountant functioning. We will have the accountant functioning. We will not have made a decision about January through June. and the supplies would not be restored. So somebody is free to make a motion in relation to these, or if nobody makes a motion, then Sarah has to essentially make do with what she's got right now and come back in subsequent meetings with any just updates on implications of what the lack of additional budget might mean later on. So I'm going to pause for about 5 seconds. If anybody wants to make a motion, you're free to make a motion. If we don't have anybody make a motion, I'm going to move on to the next agenda item.
I'd make a motion that we authorize the administration to make discretionary freezes in the budget to make up for the money to pay for the individual we already currently have on staff.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
May I make an amendment up to $12,600?
Amen.
Do I need a second for the amendment?
I'll second the amendment too.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have any other motions? Seeing none, we will proceed to the next agenda item.
So the MOA for the banking support is not being signed?
No, well, it is. Aren't we hiring that person? Is this a person currently on staff that we've already hired, or is this a person for later in the year?
This is a person that is currently on staff that has been trained to do the specific banking tasks.
So that's what we just asked to fund through discretionary freezes in the budget, so I think it would be appropriate to approve the MOU, unless the MOU specifies a funding source.
It does not specify a funding source.
So do you need a separate motion for the MOA?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOA with the funding source as previously discussed.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none? All right.
I'll
Liz?
lead with, I have a funding source on my next. I'm going to bury it. It is not on hand, I don't need to be, but this is a request from Director of Nutrition, Megan Herringhold, so I'm asking on behalf of her for the high school, the volume of work, high school's increase in cafeteria, and there's a request for adding a 3.5-hour position to the high school cafeteria to both improve the experience for the cafeteria staff and, just as importantly or more, students, so that all 4 registers can be running and there's still a person helping serve. Using the meals per labor hour industry standards, this meets all the expectations for that. And the other piece that's important to know, I think, from supporting our students, there's a large volume of the fresh produce that's prepared every day in high school, so that's a very positive piece for our students. So I'm asking on behalf of Megan for your approval to add a 3.5-hour position at the high school in cafeteria.
So moved.
Second?
Did you want to articulate the funding source?
Yes, I apologize. For those who may not know or don't remember, need a refresher, the funding source for this, when I say it's already here, the funding sources are already account for the cafeteria. It is self-funded, it has been, and we are well within our ability to spend out of that, and it is strictly for the cafeteria and it is self-supported from the revolving account for the cafeteria.
And that's due to the free lunch and breakfast.
Yes, that we receive money from state and federal, and that is guaranteed for this year, and we run, I don't want to speak out of turn, but we are in a good place that we run, we're allowed to run 3 months over, and we are in a good place for money at the high school for the revolving cafeteria account.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Sarah?
Dr. Brew asked me to present this to you tonight. This is an adjustment to the building use form that we discussed earlier during the safety committee. Essentially, As you know, there was a lot of work done to the building use form last year. Now that those changes were put into practice, we noticed some things. So on essentially what these changes do is allow the administration at their discretion to waive facility use fees for school-based groups. So things like the PTO that raise money for the students for the school would not be charged for regular use of the facilities. In addition, language was added in from our insurance company about certificates of insurance, as well as communication with the Kingston Board of Health had some strong feelings about food on school grounds. So all of that is incorporated into this.
Okay. So you're looking for a vote to approve?
Say for committee approved unanimously.
Okay. Do I have a motion then?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Was that you, Jen?
It was Amy.
Second.
Thank you.
And the second was Mark Ellison.
Thank you.
There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move on to
Schools.
principal reports.
Hi everyone. Tonight primarily we have amazing coordinators here that are going to talk about our MCAS results, but as far as school updates, I wanted you to know that I went in the cafeteria as I do every day and asked a bunch of students what their favorite part of middle school was, and they did not say lunch. They talked about science and the investigations they're doing around insulated cups. They talked about tech ed and the foot orthosis they were making in class. And one student raised his hand and said, wait a minute, what about the good passages in ELA that we get to talk about? I didn't pay them. This happened here at the middle school. So anytime you want to come see Learning in Action, please join us. It is a fun time. I'm joined here by, like I said, our curriculum coordinators, Nicole Vanisiv, Melissa Green, Scott Carroll, and Dan Correa, who's just hot off the soccer field, so thank you.
Did you win?
And this is all in your folder, so if you're not facing the TV, you can certainly pull it up on your computer. As you know, MCAS has always been part of the accountability system that we use. At the bottom of this slide, the system sorts schools and districts into categories to recognize success and identify where support is needed. So you might not be able to see from here, but in that bottom spectrum of items, we did make moderate progress towards our targets this year. And you can see that in our 2025 category or classification, that at this time we're not requiring assistance or intervention. And we've made 47% or moderate progress towards our targets. We've also moved back up in our accountability percentile to 43% after dipping last year at 39%. So what we're going to do is talk about details, and we'll certainly take questions at the end. I am going to pass this wand over to Ms. Vanisiv. And you hit the down, it's kind of weird, you hit the down button instead of the over button.
Okay, I'm sure I'll ask you that again.
That's okay, it's okay, you'll be fine.
Hi everybody, I'm Nicola Fanisiv. I'm the ELA coordinator for the middle school and the high school. I know this is, as Becky said, really tough to see on the projection screen, but you have it in front of you. We are happy to share that we've made some gains, some steady progress in the middle school. And if you look at the sort of the past 4 years, you can see that we're trending in a direction where we have more students scoring in the exceeding expectations category, as well as the meeting expectations. And that's what we were hoping for, that all of that hard work that Becky mentioned, the kids really feeling engaged in their learning is helped. Grade 8, again, we're looking at some progress from previous years. Again, worth noting the moving up in the exceeding and meeting categories. So what do we do as we talk about student outcomes and data? The department annually conducts a robust item analysis where we take a peek at those items where we, are finding steady success, as well as those items that allow us to take a closer look and to refine our instructional practices and our common assessments to meet those needs. Our classroom teachers receive personalized data folders that contain the reports relative to their, not only the school and the grade performance, but also their classroom performance and growth. And they really do look forward to those reports, and they look forward to our conversations and our productive work forward. As you know, last year we, in the ELA, we've always offered, or recently, have offered STAR reading that has expanded up through 10th grade. And teachers, again, dig into those reports to take a look at how they can adjust instruction to support students. Teachers are encouraged to align their professional goals with our school and district performance goals, as well as our district strategies for improvement, and many develop team goals with their colleagues. This year, the ELA teachers are taking a course on adolescent literacy offered by the Hill for Literacy, who works with us for our literacy audit and curriculum work moving forward. And this course is the adolescent version of the science of reading. It's a companion piece to some of the work that's being done in the elementary schools. And we have also continued to partner with Hill for Literacy to engage in this is our first year of our core program review for ELA in order to fulfill our 3-year literacy plan. Middle school teachers will be involved in our district literacy leadership team to take a look at high quality instructional materials that will help us continue to make strides forward for our students.
Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Green. I'm the Social Studies Curriculum Coordinator for grades 7 through 12. So this past spring we had our first ever Civics MCAS, and happy to say that our results were right around what we would see, what we were seeing from the state. So our 37% meeting or exceeding and that 52% partially meeting, which we're really hoping to see that increase and to see that number, get even higher for meeting and exceeding once our teachers really now understand what this exam will look like. And to that point, we've been working for the first time ever. My teachers get to really experience having their own data. We don't have growth data because last year was the first year, but we do have achievement data. We were able to look at subgroups and to look at item analysis as it relates to the standards and the framework, and to really figure out where is it that we need to hone in on to support getting that 52% up even higher. So in addition to that, our teachers have their personalized data, like Nicole shared. They get it for their specific classroom performance. And they've been really working hard on making sure that they're in full alignment with their units and their common assessments. And we're doing that through using a new curriculum. We started it last year for the first year, so we're in our second year of adoption of civic engagement in our democracy, which is out of the Democratic Knowledge Project from Harvard. It is the state's top recommended curriculum for 8th grade civics, and we're getting grant funding to support the teachers doing that. They're getting extensive professional development. We have people coming out from DKP to do site visits, and we're also very proud to share that on December 10th, we will be hosting a site visit for all potential future school districts that want to use the DKP curriculum. DKP has chosen us as to be the place where they're going to come in and show off the great work that our teachers and students are doing.
I'm going to interject real quick because she's selling herself short. Ms. Green was also invited by DKP to represent the state of Massachusetts at a week-long panel. Civic Learning Week. So she will be representing the state and speaking on behalf of all of our staff and students in Pennsylvania. So kudos to her, the work that she did. It falls on the backs of our teachers and our students. I'm gonna toot their horn.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've been really hard at work at this, and I think one of the important things to mention too is that we don't have a way to look at benchmark data through a program like STAR, so we created our own. I spent some time going through the very limited released MCAS questions that we do have. And we're using our PAIR assessment platform to take benchmark data. We've already taken our fall data and to look at it again in the winter and the spring to really look at how our kids are doing in addition to having them practice their classroom performance tasks. So, then.
This was the first year of
Yeah.
administration of this?
Yep.
Nothing more. Okay.
Great, thank you. There you are. Welcome.
So down is right?
Down.
Down is right, yeah.
Hi, I'm Dan Korea. I'm the math coordinator for 7 to 12. Down's not too bad.
We need that technology.
So as you can see, similar to what Nicole said about ELA, we did have a sizable gain from 24 to 25 in the number of students that are meeting or exceeding expectations on MCAS. So in 7th grade, we increased by 8%, and in 8th grade, increased by 10%. So a pretty sizable gain there.
I also have to toot the horn of the 7th grade team because they only had 7% of students not meeting. 7%. So that was significant when I looked at other schools as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and so that not meeting numbers that Becky referenced is much lower than the state, and then we did see, again, similar to what Nicole said, our number of students that are exceeding expectations increased year over year in both grades as well.
So could we talk a little bit about, I'm just interested because the cohorts in ELA, which we can come back to in a minute, but the cohorts here, you didn't just get a grade level improvement, you have cohort level improvement.
Yes.
Which I'm curious about because from 23 to 24, the 7th graders at 23 when they moved to 8th grade in 24 slipped by 5%, but in 24 the cohort of 7th graders in 24 improved by 11%. I'm just curious if we have any idea what made the difference.
So it's hard to draw any causal relationship there because a lot of things sort of happens in tandem. We certainly implemented STAR, which made us, I think, a little more data aware and maybe paying a little bit more attention to some of those predictive elements that could be present along the way. We also underwent a complete first year of our curriculum review last year and really tried to target any areas where there could be any alignment issues or coverage gaps or anything like that. So between those two things, I think those are kind of big things that happened. I think in terms of the kind of culture in the building in general, I think you're going to hear a lot of the same things that are popping up in the data, that everything seems to be sort of trending in the right direction. So to pinpoint one thing is going to be really hard to do, but there's certainly a lot of good work going on.
So when you finish, I want to come back to the ELA because we got opposite results in ELA. So, but please continue. We'll come back to that.
And so rather than go through all of the individual things, because a lot of these are similar to what's already been said, I'll just kind of highlight the differences. So in math, we're a year ahead in terms of our curriculum review cycle. So last year we selected our new HMH into math program for grades, well, really K to 8, but 7 and 8 are pertinent here. So we're in the first year of our implementation, which we're doing with Fidelity in tandem with the trainers from HMH that have been doing work directly with our teachers. This is the first year that STAR will be done 3 times in math. Last year we sort of were a little late in adopting it, so we did it during 2 screening windows, but this year will be 3. And so those are really kind of the main differences between what Nicole already said and what we're doing in math.
Down is right.
Oh, no, it's not legal.
Nope.
I'm the science guy trying to figure this out. I'm going to take us on a trend the other way, which I apologize for. So we dipped again in science, our median exceeding down to 32%. But I do have to say, I've looked at some data from across the state, other cohorts that are in this OSC transition, which is a lift on our teachers and the way it's implemented. The trend is pretty similar across lots of school districts. And a lot of it has to do with how the OSC is rolled out, how it's implemented 2 units a year, trying to move standards between grades. It's not just, oh, we just got a new curriculum and we're still teaching the same stuff. There's a lot of moving parts to it. Teachers are working very hard. I do have some good things to report from it. Obviously, it's not a place we want to see our data going. That is not a place that any of us like to see, and we're looking to improve on that. The improvement, again, not that we're trying to hold our breath, but we do have the last year, this year, of our old MCAS. There'll be some performance tasks embedded in that this coming year. But the old MCAS with some, again, a robust multiple choice technology enhanced questions is going away in 2027. We're going to the new performance-based MCAS, which is probably the most significant change in MCAS across any subject I don't think anybody's ever seen. So scenario-based, kids gathering data, doing manipulations online, answering questions, using their own data to answer the questions and justify their answers. Pretty robust assessment system. That being said, I would jump down to the bottom. The whole point to transition to OSC is endorsed by DESE as the curriculum of choice to meet the new standards on MCAS. And when we went and did a training about the new performance MCAS, in fact, when they trained us, they actually had OpenScience questions or questions like that, scenarios based on that as training for us as teachers, as leaders to work with our teachers to get the students better adept at doing this. We have noticed an improvement in writing and in thoughtfulness and in being able to articulate what kids are trying to say and supporting their claims with evidence, which is good. And so in that sense, when we're doing the assessment of it, we're finally in the last year of our implementation. We'll have all 6 units and all 3 grades this year, which is good. And then that being said, 7th and 8th grade teachers really looked at a more substantial way of assessing ourselves internally. Because we have all the units and we can sort of plan out our year a little better, each OSC unit will have 1 mid and 1 summative assessment, which will be common and graded on a common-based rubric. We'll look at those answers and start to put kids in categories, our own meets, exceeds, not meeting, and partially meeting. And then we're going to still continue to follow it up with the pair assessment. The pair assessment mirrors the old MCAS. We're in this sort of balancing stage of staying with the old MCAS and making sure we're getting kids ready for that, because OSC really isn't as content focused as our old MCAS is. It's more performance based. And so we're balancing those 2 things. So we will have 1 pair assessment per unit. So we'll have 3 really good assessments to sort of track our data throughout the year, which I think is a good place to be right now. And then halfway through the year, each of the 7th and 8th graders is going to use one of the DESE developed performance tasks, the in-classroom performance tasks. Those take like usually 2 to 3 days to complete. But again, it mirrors the process of what is going to be expected of them of MCAS, really persevering through a scenario, really challenging them to gather data, make claims, and support their claims. As like with the other content areas, the teachers do get their MCAS data. Our first bite at it is looking at the item analysis. Because of the way OSC is implemented, because it's moved standards between grades, 6th grade has 8th grade standards now, and vice versa, we use that as a tool to see what are some of the weaknesses and strengths in the kids coming up. What do we need to reinforce? What do we need to support? How do we build back into a certain unit something that was missing in the past? So we're working hard on that. And then lastly there, again, when we're talking about OSC and the support we get from it, the Mass OSC community, which is our funding agency that's helping support us with the infrastructure for this. Teachers get bi-yearly PD. All our teachers go to two-day sessions per year on the new unit they're implementing. We get site visits from OSC community, so we have somebody who's taught these units in the past come and watch our teachers, give us feedback, give me feedback, and help support us. There's a continuous amount of support and connection between the 2 of us. And then on October 23rd, as part of my role as a leader, I'm in a year-long PD, a 6-day PD, specifically addressing pacing, which is a major issue with OSC. Not an issue. I hate to say the word issue. It's a difficulty because the curriculum is so robust. How do we time it? appropriately. So we're getting a lot of support with that. The other side of the PLC is around assessments and ensuring that we're delivering good assessments and what are they measuring, how are they measuring it. So I'm involved in that, and on 23rd, we're going to use this building as a site visit for that day, so we'll have about 25, 30 people here doing that work, 25 or 30 of me's here in the building, and then they will be going off into classrooms to visit some of the work that we're doing, because they know we're doing good work and they want to see it and share that.
So we have an old MCAS construct, but a new curriculum.
Correct.
And the new curriculum is supposed to be aligned to what the new MCAS will be.
And it's investigation based. It's not rote memory.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It is fascinating, and it's
that's
skill-based.
And that's what and that was a statewide kind of rollout. They rolled out the curriculum, and
Yeah.
they didn't align the tests to the curriculum.
The kids are thrilled. They're excited. They don't even look at you walk in the classroom, but we're not showing any results, as many results on the test.
The state rolled out the test. It makes sense, like it's doing science and it's testing you on can you do science? They didn't provide anything else beyond that. They said it's coming. It's kind of typical.
Well, but the current MCAS format, we're still doing the old format.
Correct.
Through this year.
Through this year. And
Which
that was
is not-
supposed,
which is
They
not
were supposed
aligned
to change it last year, and then they held off another year.
Please tell me they're not penalizing anybody in the state over that. I mean, like,
Well,
an
we all
online
feel,
test.
we all
of
feel
the
the pressure.
and like I said, I've looked at cohort 3 of the OSC implementation that we're in, cohort 2, which is in their second year, and a few other random school districts that I know of and talked to. And we're all seeing the same data. We get a drop in meets and exceeds. We got a big bump in partially meeting, and then all of our not meetings. It's just amazing to see that we're all sort of seeing the same trend.
Yeah, well, it's good because it's instructionally unsound.
Right.
If you're not assessing what you're teaching, and not teaching what you're assessing. Okay.
One more year.
Can we go back to ELA real fast? Sure.
Do you want a slide, or?
I'm just looking at the cohorts. So the 2023 cohort went from 51 to 39%, 7th grade to 8th grade. And then 2024 more or less held serve from 2024 to 2025, 7th, 8th grade, 42 to 41%. Do we have any sense of what is driving that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see that it seems as though our percentage of students meeting expectation is closer to what we see at the state level. And we did dip a little in the exceeding expectations, and the difference in the test really between the 7th grade ELA and the 8th grade ELA test is the rigor of the multi-text synthesis that students have to do, which is something that we've identified that as a school-wide standard, and we're working on that, and our hope is that when we're doing our core program review and we're looking at the high quality instructional materials, that's a piece that we're going to be looking for. It's really the rigor of the text and the managing of multiple texts at the 8th grade level, which differs from the 7th grade test, is a higher order ask for the students, as well as the writing is analysis and argument based entirely at the 8th grade level, and that's a leap. That's a leap for students. So that's the testing difference that I think.
We think it's more about the content.
Yeah.
And the rigor.
So do we think we got better at that? I mean, the 2023 cohort had a 12% fall from 7th to 8th grade, but we're only at a 1% fall in the 2024 cohort from 7th to 8th grade.
Yeah, I mean, we're also looking at data in other areas. So for example, in the civics test, we were 7 points above the state in constructed responses, and that was our focus as a whole entire school last year, was literacy and writing. So we're seeing the fruit of our work in different spots, but not necessarily.
And
here in
it's
this
not
grade.
mentioned in the writing with the science too. I think the pieces where they have to take two really dense texts and then write to text become just a different challenge. That again, we continue to offer opportunities to practice, to expand upon that, to have access to a range of high quality texts, but that's certainly a focus that we've been taking a look at the 8th grade level.
So just to close out for the middle school, like I said, we really try and have whole school movements, and we're going to continue our literacy in every subject area, movement around writing and considering how we can write from text and synthesize information. It's hard for me to toggle between two screens and synthesize text, and that's what these kids have to do. We're also, as you know, all of us leaders are involved in the Research for Better Teaching, Professional Learning, and Alignment. All of our teachers are also, refreshing their objectives and working with students around their criteria for success, which is really powerful. I also think that's why they're talking about it in the cafeteria, because they're talking about it 3 times over in class. And you can see that all of the curriculum areas that are here tonight are really working on improving curriculum, finding more rigorous curriculum, and implementing it. I am so proud that 25 people from OSE are coming, maybe 30 from DKP, and our 1-8 partnership group 2 is also going to be coming in, and they're just really excited about student engagement here. So I'm proud of our team, and I know we have work to do. We'll always have work to do, but together we will.
Thank you.
I'm going to change the screen for Miss Gill and.
Thank you. Down is up. Down is
Yeah,
next.
that was right.
All right, so I'm going to sweat while she's switching now. I'll give a couple of just school updates before I jump into my MCAS data. Earlier this week, we were thrilled to induct 96 students into our National Honor Society. It's the highest number of inductees we've ever had. It brings us to 150 plus strong. These are students who, strive for excellence in many, many ways, but one of the greatest things about NHS is the service that they give back to their community, and the amount of projects and ideas that are already coming from this group is pretty powerful, and I'm excited to see the work that they'll be doing. 5 of those members are honorary members, students in our DLC program. That's a first for our chapter, so we're super thrilled for those students and to celebrate their academic achievements as well. So next week is our Spirit Week and Homecoming. We're excited for some theme days. It's also our first concert of the year. It will be Tuesday night. If anyone is around, we'd love to have you.
Bella Voce.
So there's just a couple of things. I think I still have long enough. Thank you, Becky. All right, so a lot of our slides are very similar, so I'll save you some time. But similar to the middle school, we're making moderate progress towards our targets. We did have a little bit of a dip in our school accountability percentile this year from 46 down to 44. These again are all the same, and then again I just want to point out that the state law changed last year. MCAS is no longer required for graduation. We anticipated this may have impacted our scores a little bit at the high school level. It was certainly a carrot to dangle before for some of our students. So we did anticipate a little bit of a change there. But I think for the most part, again, I think I spoke to this last spring, we can see that students actively working on their tests, and I will say, we didn't see kids who were done in 5 minutes, right, and then close out. So we did see our students working hard throughout the testing session. So I will turn it over to our coordinators again to share our data.
I'm so sorry. Okay, no. Alright, so I'm back. I will say that at the risk of aging myself, I've been here since before MCAS existed, before MCAS was a competency determination. And this is the first time that I report on a score percentage of 42%, or 44% rather. So to echo what Principal Gill said, we are very much hopeful that as we adjust to the new normal of MCAS not counting as a competency determination, we're hopeful that I won't stand before you next year at this time with a similar number. That being said, we still continue to do the work that we always do, to place a high importance on MCAS as a marker of how our students are performing toward those grade level standards. We continue to monitor and adjust our common assessments as well. And teachers continue to look through both the items and their classroom data. We know that STAR testing has been expanded for us as of midway through last year through grade 10, and that's been helpful to us to look at other sources of data. Not only our common assessments, not only our MCAS performance, but to also look at the students' skill levels in reading through STAR reading, and that has been really helpful for us. Students will take their STAR reading test in the fall, winter, and spring in grades 9 and 10 at the high school. Like other places in our district, we encourage teachers to align their professional goals with the school and district performance goals. And at the high school level, we have also been a part of the partnership with Hill for Literacy, and we do have high school representation on our district literacy leadership team and for our core program review work. So the work.
What did the rest of the state do?
Not as, we dipped below the state, but the rest of the state wasn't exactly performing at its usual level in ELA. So that, I think it's, I know you go blind looking at anything, but it's, oops. Now I can't go backwards. It is on the, it's on, okay. Oh, of course it is. Okay. So you can see, you know, where we compare to the state in that final column there. So, you know, we did dip below the state performance of GPP.
Right. In math, we did dip a little bit, at 4%. We went from 53% to 49%. But that sort of mirrored what happened in the state data. The state went from 48 to 45, so it's pretty similar in terms of the amount of decline there. And with the MCAS now being a competency determination, as Michaela mentioned, we weren't really sure what would happen in the data. And looking a little more closely at the not meeting expectations, I was pleased to see that our students did persevere and like work through the test. We didn't have 30% of our students just mail it in. Those numbers are far below what the state, in a good way, what happened across the state. So in terms of what we're doing in the department, it's very similar to what I already spoke to at the middle school. Some key differences are that at the high school, we're implementing illustrative math, which is a high-quality instructional material in our Algebra 1 and geometry classes, so 9th and 10th graders. We're also leveraging the subscription that the district already has to IXL, and we'll use that as a diagnostic tool to help us fill in some of the gaps that we're seeing as measured by STAR data. So we're using it to kind of build and reinforce some of those foundational skills that students need to be successful in higher level. And again, this will be the first year that we have 3 screening windows, so we're looking forward to being able to look more closely at that data and help us continue to do better by our students.
All right, so we did see a dip in science, pretty significant. The state as well saw a dip, probably there was like 8%, 8 or 9% meets and exceeds down. This was a shock to us to see such a slip. One of the things that we, obviously, one of the first things that we do is take a look at our data. We don't have quite as much time at the high school to unpack that, but we have had a couple of meetings. We do an item analysis, just like we do for the middle school, to really adjust curriculum to see where we had strengths and weaknesses. We did know some areas that we worked on last year, namely waves. We had a boost in that area. We also noticed some of our constructive response questions were scoring fairly low. That's the writing portion. And again, I'm not understanding exactly why. We're thinking maybe something about perseverance with students and writing, an area to boost up in science, to provide more opportunities like that. So we've started to dig in. We've seen a couple of areas. We still have some work to do on the data analysis. But like I said, teachers have their individual data. We gave them a little more robust data this time, some more percentages, looking at certain questions, comparing their class to the state, comparing classes to the school, so we can sort of align our instruction, see who was really hitting it out of the park with certain standards, where was some of our struggles with certain standards, what were people doing, ensuring that we're all doing the same thing instructional wise, but whatever's working really well, that we're making adjustments to provide that to all the students in all classes. We're collaborating on, obviously, the common assessments, like we don't have the STAR, we don't have the benchmark assessment. This year, the teachers have decided, and they kind of came up with this on their own, which was great, some pre-assessments. So again, we have unit post-assessments, we have some formative assessments we do in interim, we have a common midterm, but they decided to do some pre-assessments to gauge where students were with their content mastery coming in. Thought that was a good idea to do. Some of that came out of what they've seen at the middle school. I will have to say that Open Science it is more robust with the physical science, waves, light, magnetism, forces, energy, chemistry, which is good. And I think historically it was a weaker area in our middle school, just in terms of comfort level with teachers. So we're hoping that some of this starts to show up in these pre-assessments, and teachers can dive in and bend and weave based on what they're seeing from these students to provide more in-depth in certain areas and provide the support they need in areas that maybe we're going to see a little more connection between those two as we move forward. And obviously, the teachers continue to have focus goals around the assessment and instruction, that they're sort of all on the same page. They're working hard. Again, it was a dip we weren't expecting. We're still trying to dig and see what's going on, but we're trying to do our best to figure out how to move forward to support our kids.
Just a quick question.
Yep.
Is there any way to peel apart from the scores, the questions that are more science or tech-based or engineering, physics-based? Is there a...
So at the middle school there is. The middle school's got physical science, life science, earth and space, and then tech engineering. And those are very specifically identified on the test. We can literally pull the question out and say it's a tech standard, that's a life science standard. We can find the grade. So that's easy to do. At the high school, it's just physics. So we can figure out whether it is it forces, is it waves, is it energy, is it they still have nuclear chemistry and nuclear physics in there. Yeah. So we can figure that out. But whether it's a tech standard, there really aren't tech standards at that level. Yeah.
Just curious if one bit is much higher where something else is extremely low, and then you're averaging out to that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with the science is we can see like a standard or a strand within the larger standards that were maybe weaker or stronger in as compared to something else. Because there's a connection between the two, but there's also separation between the two. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I always think it's helpful to share what our next steps are after we, as both the leadership team and then by department, look at the student data and look at the results. And so I shared my opening day slides with you that highlight our focus areas, next steps following MCAS scores, our STAR assessment from the second half of last year, as well as any common assessments that we issued last year. But in the interest of time, I'd like to skip ahead to slide 24. Right here, where I share our anchor points for the school year. And first, it's academic growth for every student. Second is strong relationships and a positive culture. And third is professional collaboration and accountability. And finally, high standards in instruction. So these are the things that will ground us as both the leadership team and within our departments and with all of our teachers across the building, that will guide our decisions and keep us aligned as a team. Every decision, every policy, and every initiative that we make this year will tie back to one of these goals. We sort of use the anchor theme throughout the year, and staying anchored means not drifting away from what matters most, which is students learning in a positive and supportive culture. And so the instructional look forwards that we as a leadership team are focusing on this year, as we dive into some more data and think about the ways that we can help move the needle with MCAS not maybe being as instrumental in that anymore. It's looking at how we define high quality teaching at the high school. So when we walk into classrooms on either learning walks or we conduct observations, we're looking for that consistency and high quality learning experiences for our students, because that's what anchors us to excellence and keeps us accountable, ensuring that every student gets the best education possible. So we are looking for teachers to be consistently framing the lesson by stating what the objective is, how do we reach that objective, how do we demonstrate that we're learning, what is the criteria for success, similar to what I was explaining earlier. Again, this is a consistent thing across all, or both of our buildings, 7 through 12. And so sharing our goals for the year as a school, and they align with our district goals, and I do apologize for the really tiny print. But our student learning goal, professional practice goal, and school improvement goals are all sort of centered on our data analysis. And so our student learning goal, as we shift to maybe using the STAR assessment and more common assessments to measure student success and determine what interventions may need to take place or what course corrections we need to make throughout the year. We're looking at 70% of our students meeting or exceeding those grade level benchmarks. For our professional practice goal, again, it's implementing those high impact instructional strategies. Someone spoke earlier to the fact that our entire leadership team is either retaking or taking the ATSR course, which builds off of the skillful teaching course that our teachers take. So again, just sort of aligning our practices. And then for our school improvement goals, we are thrilled to have the Laker block in place this year in that fixed schedule. So it's using that time throughout the week for both academic interventions and support, but also enhancement and enrichment for students. So those are just some of our key focus areas this year. Becky already highlighted those district-wide goals that we have. And just again, we're anchored in grit this year. And a big thanks to our teachers, our support staff, our curriculum coordinators, for all the great work that they do to support our students.
One question. Do we have any copies of the Forest Grit in the library? And has anybody checked it out?
Well, I don't know if anybody's checked it out or not, but we have several copies floating around our school.
I can say that we do have copies and that my 10th graders, your daughter included, read a study by Angela Duckworth 2 weeks ago. So ask her about it. Ask her about it.
I've read the book. I think it's fantastic. I think if we could
It's also
afford
a
it,
great TED Talk that she speaks on.
it would be great if everybody.
Gordon, may I just ask
Thank you.
the principals? I've noticed the data hasn't come home yet to parents. Is that expected very soon?
It's going on Friday. Tomorrow.
2:45.
And then
scheduled.
2:45 tomorrow, I'll get
You will
blown up.
get your children's.
Early.
You'll get your report
All
at
6.
2:45, you'll get a message from the principals at 3:30.
All 6. Thank you.
No, ours.
Happy weekend.
The whole district.
Brady Colton, Brady Mountain Road. They're in 6th grade. And I like to be though. That's what I'm thinking.
Clearly, I watch
Partially.
So what's left under my report, it says audit management letter on here, it's actually a management decision letter. So the district undergoes 3 audits during the course of the year. One is the audit of the district that gets submitted to the Department of Revenue. One is the single audit which gets submitted to the federal government, and one is the audit of the end of year report which goes to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The single audit is part of the larger audit that is done by our independent auditors, and it was late. It was due on March 31st and submitted on September 26th. The single audit is for when we have grants in excess of $750,000. So the single audit is required by the federal government when you have grants in excess of $750,000, which Silver Lake does. The single audit was submitted, and then it gets pulled through Federal Audit Clearinghouse by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Audit and Compliance Department, because all of our federal grants are pass-through grants. The money goes from the U.S. Treasury to the Department of Education to us. So this is the notification from the Department of Education that we need a corrective action plan, and they gave us steps in this letter of what needs to be done. So the first step is they need a copy of a grant management manual. I actually submitted that to the Department of Education in December of 2024. That has been updated several times since I submitted it. I'll resubmit the new copy. They are asking to provide documentation confirming staff completion of training on the district's policies and procedures for grants management. So I will train any staff that has anything to do with grants on this manual that was written and submitted. The last thing they look for is to provide procedures to ensure the district's single audit is to be completed and filed by March 31st of the following year. So, and that, looking for guidance from the school committee of how you would like me to respond to this. My response last year, because this was a repeat finding from last year, my response last year is that we were going to request additional staff at the business office. I can give them that same response again if you would like.
Any comments? None that are appropriate.
Is there any financial implication from?
Yes.
What?
They can withdraw our federal grants.
How many warnings before they do that?
Well,
Is this the warning?
this is a repeat finding, and I can go back into digital records from my predecessor and see these findings going back to 2015, 2016, 2017.
Right, well, I'd say it's such a catch-22 because we can't fund the positions because we don't have enough money, particularly federal funds. Like, we need more money to run the district to create these positions to then do the work. So
This federal money is to supplement, not supplant.
I get that, but if it's supplanting or supplementing some of our budget, we still need other dollars to then hire people to help run the district. So we're kind of chasing our tail, if you would, so you can just let them know that we're chasing our tail and we're currently understaffed. So
If that's what you would like me to communicate, I will.
I just don't see how we are going to appease
I'll
them.
reiterate what I said last year. I will give Sarah and her office all the political cover I can, and if we do lose federal funding, people will lose their jobs and it will not be at Silver Lake.
Agreed. Agreed. Thank you, Jason.
I don't think it would be wise for them to do that to us.
Agreed. Good luck.
Is it worth including language regarding the reason we haven't added the staff is entirely due to lack of funding? Like, is that something that can be?
I had put that in the document that was uploaded to the federal grant clearinghouse, that the positions were requested in FY25 and then again in FY26, and were not granted because of difficult budget years. So that information is known.
Okay.
So I will tell them.
Is this department still open right now?
This is DESI. Yes, it's open.
But, so that's just the state, why are we talking about?
So the
But federal funding?
So the state, the money from the federal government goes to DESI. DESI passes the money to us. So the audit goes from the federal government.
No one's gonna be bothering the state.
And then the state Department of Audit and Compliance sends me this lovely letter.
Because I'm going to be hopeful that when people get back to work, that they're going to have other things on their plate rather than chasing school districts for audits. So,
I have 90 days to respond to this letter.
Send it. You can send it.
That you will ask again for support, and that we haven't previously been able to grant it because we had to draw on rainy day funds essentially to fund the district.
Will do, thank you.
Good luck.
Administrative requirements.
Okay, I have a few things tonight. The first is the math curriculum reviews in phase 2. If you recall, last year we implemented phase 1 of the math curriculum review, and we chose HMH for K through 8. This year we're in phase 2. And illustrative math is at the high school, Dan spoke about a few minutes ago. Professional development on the new curriculum was held on August 25th, 26th, and September 2nd. September 25th, educators also had the opportunity to meet with HMH consultants virtually to ask any questions about implementation. And then you can see below I included the activity timeline for implementation of HMH, and this is all the professional development that we're doing. You also see in that K through 12 math steering committee, this is the group that is working this year as a math committee to just support what's happening, to continue year 2 of overseeing that implementation and sort of reporting any information that we need to know about, and that's important to that implementation. The second piece is that this is year 1 of the English Language Arts Curriculum Review Cycle, phase 1. So this is the first year of ELA curriculum review cycle. It's underway. The goal is to review our curriculum assessment and instruction in regards to English Language Arts. We'll be conducting a core program review. We have formed the following committees. So this is a massive undertaking. It's year 1 of ELA. I talked a lot about math last year. This year it's first year for ELA. And we're really looking at a core program review for K through 5 and 6 through 8. You'll see listed, these are all the committees that have been formed to address all of these different parts of that curriculum review. Much of this is being funded through PRISM granting. So we received a PRISM grant for Kingston, Plimpton, and Silver Lake Preschool. And what I mean by that is these folks are compensated for their time through grant funding to review curriculums, to participate in professional development. This grant pays for that professional development. And like I said, it pays for people to be on these committees. And it will also pay, in the districts that received PRISM, half of the cost of the new curriculum. So it's altogether $450,000 for all of the groups, districts that received it. And these are the groups that have been formed. The K through 12 ELA Steering Committee is a K through 12 committee, representative from all different schools. It's a great lineup. I really want to send out a thanks to people who really leaned in and signed up for these committees to do this work. You'll see K through 6 Curriculum Council. So that's really a K through 6 group. It's primarily a K through 5 group. The 6th grade teacher is now going to join the 6 through 8 group because we're going to be looking for a 6 through 8 curriculum and a K through 5 curriculum. So these are the folks K through 5, and then you'll see 7 through 12, which would be the DLLT, which Nicole spoke about a little bit. That's a group that's at that secondary level. And then also the Silver Lake Integrated Preschool Curriculum Council. This is a group that's, I think, all-inclusive of just about everybody at the preschool being on this council. These committees meet with professional development consultants, what's called TNTP, which is a group that DESE contracts with to meet with us, to take us through these processes, core program review, provide professional development, and we've already had some of our first meetings, which is great, and has been wonderful collaboration with TNTP so far. So what will come out of this will be a recommendation for a new program, K through 5 for ELA and one for 6 through 8, all based on high quality instructional materials. Like I said, at the lower levels, we're working with DESE through the PRISM grant to get the consultant and the work that we need to do this. And at the 6 through 8 group, we're working with Hill for Literacy, which is a group that we worked with last year that helped us with our needs assessment and our literacy plan. And all of these things align with the literacy plan, which I spoke about last spring, which basically says that these are the things that we're going to do in the next several years to address curricular improvement over the next, basically, 3 to 5 years.
So that's it, that's the short story. And then I added everything below. You'll see all of the HMH PD that's happening. Consultants come, they spend days at the school. They've already been to KIS, they've already been to the middle school and spent the whole day in classrooms, observing teachers, providing feedback, meeting with the grade level teams, and this will continue on in different ways at different schools throughout the year. So that's everything I have for tonight.
Thank you for speaking for Dr. 32.
Yes. So the piece that's in our agenda in particular related to the superintendent's report is the enrollment information. So you will see the enrollment charts that are in the folder for October 1 enrollment. And as you look at those, you'll see the homeschool pieces, the homeschool enrollment for K through 6, homeschool enrollment for 7 through 12, and then student enrollment for union number 31 for K through 6. Overall, this pretty much stayed the same for the most part, a little bit of a dip in Kingston. And then student enrollment for Silver Lake, pre-K, and then 7 through 12. And overall, the same, but also a slight dip for Kingston in 7 through 12 for student enrollment at Silver Lake. And then you can see the other reports as indicated as far as enrollment, including the various grade levels for each one of the elementary schools in your folder.
My devices are now dead.
Anything else? Okay. SLEA.
Hi.
Hello.
For those who don't know me, I'm Ashley Ferrara, and I wear a few different hats, but mostly known as an ELA teacher. I just wanted to offer another point of data, because I know, Gordon, you love data, and for anybody else who's interested. So Nicole splits out MCAS data for teachers, so like I can see how my cohort of 10th graders did last year. But I've only ever had one data point, which is MCAS, or when I was teaching seniors, I had their AP exams. But last year, for the first time, I had MCAS, their AP scores, and their star reading. And it was eye-opening because 77% of my kids were meeting or exceeding expectations, but 94% of my kids passed the AP exam, which I would argue is a much more rigorous test. And we beat the state by 12 percentage points, which is almost unheard of for the 15 years that I was teaching AP Lit. Like, the difference was not that much. So just another point for you guys to have, and like it does give us item analysis breakdown too, where we can compare some of those things. And even some of my kids who got 4s on the AP exam were scoring at like a middle school reading level. But they have now found ways to move past the things that hold them back in reading to synthesize ideas in writing. So they've moved so far beyond that it's hard to determine for me how much that MCAS data matters in comparison to something like that. So just for you to digest.
Can I add just one more piece? Thank you, Ashley. Also, it's still required that we take the MCAS test. So attendance, as far as our rate of students participating, is still very important. And we do well with that. So in our accountability data, we have good percentages students taking the test. That's very important. In some districts, the attendance or the rate of students taking the test has dipped, and that causes a whole ripple effect of then we have to go into almost like a corrective action piece. We have to address that. It's a ripple effect. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows we do need to take it, and we do a good job with attendance, and we need to keep that up as far as student data.
And just before Ashley gives the rest of her report, you may remember that that's a new course to us, that AP seminar that just a few years back we came and we pitched you, and some of you have had the opportunity to visit the class, but this was our first cohort of kids taking that exam, and so it's certainly attributed not only to our students, but to Ashley's dedication and hard work in attending training sessions and scoring sessions, and so I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that in addition to her sharing that data point.
I did score for the College Board, not our exams, but pages of exams. That's it, that's all of my report.
Well, Graham reported today that he's learning quantum mechanics and chemistry.
Oh my.
I was like, in chemistry? Physics? Well, it's because Newtonian analysis doesn't work down at the atomic level. I know that, son, but...
Ms. Farrar, I'm happy to sit in again if you're looking
I
for...
will surely be sending more
Thank you.
invites because the more feedback that they get, the better. So you guys can be on the look for an invite to come give them feedback on their presenting.
Probably
Sometime the
January.
end of December, it should be in January.
Thanks.
Do we have anything from admin review?
Oh, may I?
Yeah.
We need to schedule a meeting. Our admin review subcommittee chair has resigned, so now that Halifax is full again, we need to set a meeting. So
So we have to wait until Halifax reorgs because their meeting was canceled. They didn't have a quorum.
Oh, that was going to be October 6th.
Did yell at Lauren about that? Although she was not one of the people who...
It wasn't her fault. I'll stick up for Lauren.
Well, just to update on that though, from our attorney, not from our attorney, but the data that they had was already submitted. So whether or not we approve the superintendent's review, the data was already submitted.
All right, CTE.
So I was elected the chair pro temp. We held off on having our reorg formalized because Lucas wasn't there. I would like, if it's possible, for us to have a CTE meeting scheduled for next Thursday night to coincide with the CTE dinner. Just in case we have a quorum, we can take the vote and officially reorg.
Perfect.
And make Lucas our chair again.
Yay.
All right.
Agenda as a reorg.
We did talk.
Jason,
Probably the same.
Did you have anything else you want to talk about the meeting though?
No.
Jason, you want to continue with the legislative report?
Sure. So, as part of the governor's graduation statewide council, I was actually asked by the Commissioner and Secretary of Education to solicit feedback on the preliminary draft of our recommendations that we're supposed to present to Governor Healy in December. So I put together a letter and I shared it with the Commissioner and Secretary 4 hours before it went public. That's a common courtesy with things like this, before they go wide publicly. I haven't always received the same level of discretion, but I thought it was only appropriate. The Commissioner did not respond, but the Secretary did and asked me to remove the word high stakes from my letter that was going out to MASC membership. This was specifically in regards to a part of their draft, which includes something called EOCs. I want you all to be on the lookout for EOCs, though, now that I brought it to light. They're probably going to change the acronym to try and hide it again. EOC stands for End of Course Assessments. And directly from the state of Massachusetts, this is how they define it. Students take end-of-course assessments that are connected to specific courses that are designed, administered, and scored by the state, promoting uniform standards across Massachusetts.
You don't say.
And right in one of their bullets, they said, we're going to define the role of EOCs as part of the graduation requirement. I said, excuse me, the voters of Massachusetts just said you can't do that. What are you trying to do? If you can convince me before my letter goes public that this is not high stakes testing, I will withdraw the words from my letter. I will change the verbiage. We couldn't agree, so I released the letter. The overwhelming response has been that people feel like this is undercutting the will of the voters. I was asked to reply to the Commissioner and Secretary by October 12th with my findings. But since I haven't heard from them, except for some very disparaging comments they made about me, I'm going to let the Boston Globe run an article with the results of what the membership of MASC and others across the state have said about this idea of EOCs.
Will you sign a copy?
I would love it, right?
Are we at all concerned? The Boston Globe has traditionally been a very pro high stakes testing publication.
Of course. Yeah.
So are we concerned that?
So, you know, it depends on the day, and doesn't mean we're friends, but right now, we're working on an article to come out. Several people have been interviewed and asked for their opinions about it. I, unfortunately, have to walk into the room tomorrow with the commissioner and secretary, who have not spoken to me since this letter went public. And I'm going to hold my head up high because I did nothing wrong. I'm very disappointed in the both of them.
Agreed.
And they need to remember who they work for. Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't in favor of removing MCAS as a graduation requirement, but I'm definitely not in favor of what this is. You cannot just do an end run around like what the entire population voted for.
And you know, Gordon, I wrote it as, my concern is they may use it this way, because they have not established they will, but the language they're utilizing is indicating them leaning towards that. If they want to replace the MCAS with this as an accountability standard to meet the federal requirements, I really have no objection. But they haven't articulated that, and I've given them multiple opportunities. Before I sent this letter to the membership of MASC, I sent a similar letter to them in private 28 days prior, and all I got back from them was noted, thanks.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Earlier, I was going to ask if we could somehow combine your letter when Mrs. Gill started speaking about what the district had come up with that we just passed as policy tonight for graduation requirements, competency determination, because I was wondering if the two were intertwined at all. But we just asked our principals, the state just asked our administrators to do all of this work because the MCAS was removed. So to now tell them that their work was useless and to come up with their own solution, in my opinion, undermines the work that they just asked of their administrators. So I would say that you have my support when you publish this letter, and I'll look forward to a signed copy when, you know, it makes some waves.
If I make it out of the meeting tomorrow.
Good luck.
Appreciate it. I think you know how it's going on Capitol Hill, and similarly on Beacon Hill. Do you know they haven't filed and passed a single bill in about 3 years, except for budgets and supplemental budgets? They're not doing anything. They're not doing their job. They need to get off their rear ends and put themselves to work. We are fighting right now for a supplemental budget, ironically, that may restore some funding that we all expected to have, which would again increase the state aid for this fiscal year that I would hope would flow into E&D and help us in future years to wean ourselves off that pathway. But stay tuned, I'm not very hopeful it will pass. They're worried they're going to lose $2 billion in federal funding because of the current shutdown. I know everyone's saying don't worry. Don't worry right now, but you should worry like a few weeks from now if it's still going on.
Right.
Mark, negotiations.
Negotiations, we are well underway with the support staff and the paraprofessionals. Things are going well with both. I think we're closer with the support staff than we are to paraprofessionals, but we have meetings set up. And then we met with the teachers just this week to establish ground rules and get that rolling. More to come.
Amy.
So PAC met on October 2nd for our first meeting of the year. We had our Board of Trustees, which we do once a year, and renewed the retirement approval. I'm trying to read my own handwriting here. We had our reorg. Trying to think what else. Everything was pretty standard. It was a very, very quick meeting. Current enrollment is 112. They have a new PD, new director of Pilgrim Academy, and no audits coming up this year. We had a lot of audits last year, and all of them passed with flying colors. I think that's about it. Unless anyone's any questions.
Policy.
I have a long
question. Pretty non-controversial stuff here. ADDA, background checks, just brought in Corey Sori into the language, access to buildings, make sure that people can't come in when we don't want them here, school food and nutrition, meal modifications. We can't charge kids more money if they have like an allergy. Gifts and solicitations by staff. We all do conflict of interest training every couple of years. This is in line with that. Student fundraising activities. There is some new language from the Massachusetts Attorney General about making sure that anyone who's doing any type of raffle or lottery type system to raise funds, whether it's PTO boosters, ourselves, file the proper licensure or certifications within towns. Same thing with relations with parent booster organizations, just making sure the language is clear between us and them. Parent advisory councils, just including other parent advisory councils, not just the special ed one, but also ELL ones. And visitors to the school, again, indicates who's allowed where and when. So I would appreciate the waiving of the actual read.
I have a question on two of them. Can we pull them out, or do you just want me to ask them?
Go ahead.
Okay. For JJE, where it says, fundraising activities may not involve competitions among students. Students may not be rewarded with additional recess snacks, activities, or any type of prize for having raised larger amounts of funds or reaching fundraising goals.
Yeah, and the other way around, right? You can't reward kids for raising extra money. You can punish kids for not raising anything.
Right.
Yeah. There's no incentives for fundraising from the public schools.
Is this a policy that will be asked for the entire district?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I see that as being possibly problematic for some of the younger grades, like they do the booster-a-thon. That's incentive-based. So that would
That
prevent.
would be a violation of this policy.
So that would prevent things along those lines. Okay. My other question is about the relations with parent groups. It says that all parent organizations shall obtain 501c3 status. I do not believe they all currently have that. Will they be given a specific timeline in order to get that
That is
status?
their job to obtain that. We have always encouraged them to obtain that. We're not supposed to interact with them on certain levels if they don't have that.
Right, but like for the ones, I don't want to call anybody out, but for the ones that I know
Please don't, right.
do not have it,
They
will
need
they
to
be
do it.
able to continue to operate? Or what would happen with
If they're
those?
handling any funds,
Hmm?
they should have it.
Oh, I
If
know.
they don't have it,
No, I know, and I have, they're not
we put
organizations I'm
ourselves-
involved with, but I know they
We put ourselves
exist.
in jeopardy by interacting with them to a certain extent if they're not a registered organization. They're not paying taxes,
No, I know, I'm just asking like what,
ramifications.
right, and how quickly would they go into effect?
Um,
Immediately, if this passes, or?
So this is not the first time we've had this conversation about different groups, right? So it's imperative that they do it as soon as possible.
The question more about if they're not, if they're acting in good faith to obtain it, can they still operate currently?
Right, because I know that can be a lengthy process. Like I can say the high school PTO obtained 501c3 status, like while I've been a member. It took
2 years.
It didn't take 2 years, but it probably took, I don't know.
It takes over a year.
It was a while, it was at
But
least
the
6
submission
months,
was
yeah.
But the submission was in.
I believe so.
Well,
We
you're
hired
also
an
asking
accountant, so
volunteers
she-
to come up with tax documents and stuff, and that, then you have to find a volunteer that's skilled in those, subsets to be able to tackle all that. I know that we've had this issue at the elementary levels before as well. Yeah.
I'm trying not to say anything, right?
Not to put you in an awkward position, I'm so sorry.
I'm not a lawyer either.
So I have a follow-up question. If these policies do apply to the elementary districts, is this something that Union 31 and a joint meeting would have to vote on?
No, no. The Union 31 Policy Subcommittee then brings those policies
Back
to
to the
the
committee. Okay.
elementary
So these
committees,
have already
so they're
been-
passed separately. For instance, Kingston has a couple of policies that the district does not, Halifax may that the district does not. They're all separating under 4 separate entities.
But understand that most policies that we pass are to bring us into compliance with MGL, CMR, and federal laws and regulations. It's not just we willy-nilly came up with these ourselves. So by not passing these, you would need to check any of the legal ramifications for the district and whether or not you're putting them in legal jeopardy. So
Jason had sought a motion.
Okay.
to waive the actual reading.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Yes.
Would you like me to, would you like me to start my ayes? Okay. I will make a motion that we accept and waive the first reading of the following policies: ADDA, ECAB, EFBA, GBEBC, IKFE, JJE, KBE, KBG, and KI.
Second.
Second.
Just so you know, we technically already passed IKFE earlier tonight after Michaela's presentation. But it doesn't hurt for us to include it again.
Lucas seconded. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
All right, regionalization.
We have another meeting next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. The Collins Center presented a revised scope of their work, which was unanimously accepted. They've changed the initial public engagement session and replaced it with a financial analysis modeling. And then there's some concern from central office, we've heard this already tonight, about having the proper staffing to get all of the data that's being requested that will be requested of the Collins Center to complete this study. There's going to be, I believe Missy Bateman's going to check with the town to make sure that since they came in under proposal, that some of that money can be utilized towards approximately $10,000 towards staffing to
Harvest that.
Yeah, to complete the work. And that's it.
I'd just like to point out that all 4 entities have different accounting systems. All 3 towns have different accounting systems. We have a different accounting system. So harvesting data is not something that's easy. And it's something our administrators, business department has to deal with on a regular basis. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, safety?
So we had a meeting, and I think we've discussed the rooftop unit enough. We had a use form approved and recommend approval for the facilities here, and I'm not sure, do we need a vote here for that as a full committee?
Didn't we approve that under Sarah's presentation?
Okay, I missed it, okay. And then we discussed the phone system that 10 years ago I was on this committee and we discussed a phone system that needed to be replaced with a new phone system. And here we are 10 years later and we're doing it again. Of course, none of the software is supported again. It's the same thing that seems to be rather prevalent in education, that you have a whole group and then all of a sudden the industry just decides to switch gears. So we're abandoning a Microsoft system. We have to put this in next year's budget. And basically, the financial obligation for Silver Lake was about $50,000. About $27,000 of that will be recovered in our operating side because we don't have to pay for the maintenance and insurance that we normally would pay for because that's included in the bid. So really, the overall cost is about $23,000, which is about, I'm guessing about 1/8 of what it was the last time we did this 10 years ago. So yes, something actually came down in cost in the last 10 years. And, Steve made a wonderful presentation, but they have picked a system. And part of the reason the cost is less is we're able to reuse 2/3 of the hardware we currently have, the current phone system. And the system will interact with all the present 911 requirements and all the ability to do PA and everything that we currently have. There's an additional added value is that the cell phones through an app will be available for us to use, the teachers to use and staff rather, to be able to use the phone system through an app. So I think it's a good choice, so we endorse that choice that Steve and his team had come up with. The Newburyport was another school that had already implemented this system with this system and was extremely happy with it. And we approved the CT project to take care of the retaining wall around the admin building that's made out of old railroad ties that's falling down, and it was an overall cost that was within our budget for that capital plan budget. For $6,000, we're going to get 93 some odd feet of retaining wall replaced and learn a whole mess of stuff about that as our horticulture company, horticulture kids actually learn how to do a retaining wall. So it's a win-win, and we approve that. That's it.
Thank you. Union 31.
The next meeting is November 13th. It is a virtual meeting. I strongly encourage all school committee members to attend, including all of the elementary committee members, because at that meeting, as you may remember a few years ago, all of these presentations went to one meeting, which is going to be at this meeting, instead of 4 separate presentations of our SPED presentation, technology presentation, and curriculum presentation. So it's, will happen on November 13th.
Virtual.
Virtual.
Mr. Chair, I won't be there.
All right. I don't think we have any.
6 p.m., I believe.
With that,
But then we'll go out because it's a joint meeting.
Jason?
Yes.
Lucas?
Yes.
Mark H?
Yes.
Megan?
Yes.
Jean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Motion.
Mark G?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Motion to adjourn.